and welcome to another episode of Mindset Over Matter. I'm your host, Gabby Gooding, and today I'm really excited to have Coach Bronson join me to dive into the topics of fitness and mindset. So, welcome, Coach Bronson.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a
Looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. Me too. So let's just dive right in. My first question that I wanted to ask you, which I'm hoping is not too heavy to start, is just I'm really curious. What is your training and nutrition philosophy? Because there's so much information out there and so many different opinions out there on what's the right nutrition and the wrong nutrition and the best workout. And I feel like people get really overwhelmed with seeing it all, and they don't know what's right and what's wrong. So what's your take on things?
Wow, that is a very we could talk. I wonder if I could do a whole 45 minutes without taking a breath, right?
Go for it. You're welcome to try.
Okay, so my fitness, nutrition, training, health journey philosophy. Um, Honestly, it really has nothing to do with how you do it. It has more to do with why you do it. The importance and all of the different things that the importance of the individual requirement and need overrides all of the different things that are out there. Whether you're vegan, vegetarian, keto, carnivore, paleo, whole 30, whatever it is, it really doesn't matter. What matters is, are you making choices that are moving you in the direction you want to go? That's really the end goal, right? We're all trying to get better. So if we're doing something just because we think this is the right thing to do, but it's not helping us, then it's not the right thing to do.
Right.
So who cares what anyone says is the right way to do something? Is it working for you? That's the goal. So my philosophy is focus on the individual need, the individual person as a holistic view. What is that person's goal? What is that person's background? What is that person's experience, preferences, and lifestyle, mindset, all of those things? How do all of those things play into the picture? Look at as many things as possible about a person's life and how they can put something that's going to be sustainable into action. Because that's another aspect, right? It has to be sustainable. And then it has to move them forward. If it's not moving them forward, then what's the point? So if we talk about in specific protocols and methods that I use, that's one conversation. If we talk about my philosophy on health and fitness and how someone can get better, I think that's a different discussion.
Yeah, no, that's a great start. And it makes me think actually back in my personal training days, had clients come to me and say, well, I don't know what's the right type of exercise to do. I don't know if I should take up running because that's the better thing to do, or if I should take up even, dancing or boxing or this or that. And I
Yep.
remember saying the same thing to them, that it doesn't actually matter what you choose to do. If it's something that you enjoy that will help you stick with it and actually show up, then that is the better thing for you to do. um
Yes.
so yeah, I definitely love that. And I love that you said that it doesn't really matter how, but it matters why. And just on, I think probably every person on earth has heard about finding your why, for different things, right? Whether it's for your career or for your personal life or your fitness. It is a good thing to call out. And what I found with my clients back in the day is that what was most effective was helping them find a why that was tied to something emotional for them.
Yes.
Because, especially in the fitness industry, I think people feel that they should be losing weight, or everybody feels like they should be exercising more or eating better. And so when you first ask a client, well, you know, why is it that you want to lose 20 pounds? We'll say, well, I know that I should, or I know that I drink too much beer, or I know whatever, because I should. But then if you can actually take the time to dig a little bit deeper than that, and then you get to the answers like, well, I want to make my children proud. I want to be able to play with my grandkids again. I want to, you know, a lot of more emotional types of answers. So I don't know if that been true for you too in your experience with your clients?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. My favorite saying working particularly with new clients is when I'm starting that conversation and having that, getting that process going is they need to find a why that makes them cry.
Hmm.
You have to have again, like you said, an emotional connection to your purpose, because the things that you're used to doing that are keeping you where you are emotional. You know what you need to do. The nutrition and the fitness piece is easy. Everyone knows what they can do to get better. It's actually taking the action and doing it that is the problem, and being consistent with it. And that is all about motivation and your desire to do one thing versus another thing. So, in that competition of wills or desires, I'm not going to say wills because it's not even wills, it's desires. In that competition of desires, there's an emotional bond. And if the emotional bond to stay where you are is stronger than your emotional desire to move forward, then you're going to stay where you are.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of something I saw you post recently, and I'd love if you could expand on it here. It was something along the lines of reframing our thinking to consider the things that we value more than the things that we like, I think is what it
Oh,
was.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
you were looking at my social media.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was great though. I loved that. It stuck with me. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we like. And in the pursuit of happiness, we often tend to forget that purpose is more important, that being fulfilled isn't always a fun experience. It's a weird thing to say, but there's a lot of work that goes into finding fulfillment in life. It's not easy. So I think we often confuse happiness, things that I like, with everything should be easy. If it's hard, then it's not something I want to do. And that again goes to that root thing. I'm more comfortable where I am. Where I want to go is going to be uncomfortable, and I don't have a reason to do that yet. That goes into motivation. I have this conversation a lot with clients, and that is when they come to me and say, I just need more motivation. I need to do this challenge to get motivated. I need to join this group to get motivated. I need you. I'm hiring you so that you can help motivate me. And I have to have this conversation with them and say, look, go look up the definition of motivation in the dictionary. And motivation literally means the desire to want to do something or the purpose to do something. And if you don't have motivation, it's literally when you say, I don't feel motivated to do something, you were literally saying, I just don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So and you have a choice. Do you accept that? Or is this whole process about you deciding that's not what you want to do and you need to do something different? So it's that crossroads of awareness.
It is, and I think just as you were talking, I sort of thought, well, the if we're going to follow the things that we like and that are comfortable, it's a very short term way of looking at things or approaching it, right? If we consider the things that we value and not just consider, but start acting on the things that we actually value, it is harder, but it is better for the long term. And I think
Yes.
that this is something that I think people struggle with in general. Delayed gratification is hard. And, I think maybe there are some things that we can do to help ourselves stay focused on the long-term goal and stay focused on the vision, because motivation is your desire to do something, but I think because it's even desire too is a feeling, I think that it's fleeting a little bit as well. You're
Yep.
never going to feel 100% motivated all the time, and so I would suggest that it's a combination of motivation and discipline as well, right? That's going to get you to the end goal. But I see that you're
Yeah. This
looking at me
this
sideways, so what do you think about that?
yeah, no, the semantics of wording, right? It is it motivation and discipline, I think a combination, definitely. I am motivated to go to work every day. I don't feel like going to work every day, but I'm still motivated to go
Hmm.
because I value my paycheck. And that's what I was talking about in that content. Motivation is the the result of the decision to do something. I want this, so I'm going to do this. Yeah, I
Right.
should say it's the impetus to make the decision to do something. I want this paycheck, so I'm going to go to work, even though I don't want to or feel like going to work. So motivation, technically, in my opinion, is void of feeling. It shouldn't be an emotional thing. Now, the reason you're motivated should be emotional,
Right.
but being motivated doesn't necessarily have to be. It's a weird, very nuanced conversation of wording and how things play out. But yeah, I
Right.
think your why should be emotional, which should motivate you give you a desire to go do something and make that commitment and be disciplined no matter what. So it's kind of that chain of events.
Yeah. So, I don't know if I'll be able to articulate this question exactly right, but I'm going to try. Um, so when you talked about the fact that you're motivated to go to work even though you don't want to me, I think part of why you're still motivated to do that is because you know what's on the other side of it, right? It's the paycheck. You have the result in mind,
That's the
and
value.
that's the value, right? Uh, but I'm wondering, do you think that it would be beneficial for people to maybe increase their awareness on what the end result is of their short-term decisions, and and just bring awareness to that so that they recognize that it's actually not what they want. And I don't know if that's clear or not, but we engage in these short-term behaviors, and we don't actually maybe remind ourselves how harmful it can actually be to what we actually want. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the way to do that, again, I think it's hard. It's not an easy thing and it takes practice. But if we can reframe the way we think about our options, and instead of looking at things from a pro and con, we tend to look at things and go, well, if I do this, then that, if I do this, then that, and back and forth. The issue with looking at things from a pros and cons perspective is we as human beings tend to throw our own personal biases into that. We put justifications, we put reasonings, we make excuses, and we throw all those things into pro or the con, often into the pro, so that we end up doing the thing that we really shouldn't be doing in the first place. If we change that and reframe that internal discussion into something of a, let's equate it to dollars, right? If we reframe that into a net positive or net negative discussion, and we remove our individual bias, our individual perception and feelings about the situation, and look at just the facts, is this, again, the end result? The only rule is your progress. So the end result is, I'm trying to get to X. If I do this or this, which one's going to move me closer or further away? And
Right.
then it's black and white. If you can look at it as, I'll use alcohol as a great example. Okay. There is not a single thing about alcohol that's a net positive. Now, you could say that being part of a social environment and partaking in the same thing that everyone else is in a pros and cons discussion, that would be a pro. I'm participating. I'm being part of the group. I'm engaging. I'm having fun, etc. The problem is that has nothing to do with your health journey. So if you take that out, and now you're looking at it just from a net positive and net negative perspective, there is zero net positive for alcohol. Everything about alcohol is a net negative. So there is no justification for actually drinking alcohol if you're looking at it specifically in the framework of, is this going to help me improve my health?
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. Um, so I think it's safe to say that everybody knows the benefits of exercise and eating well. And yet it seems to be such an uphill battle for the majority of people to that they never win that battle. Right. At least not on a long-term, truly changing your lifestyle kind of way. And
Mhm.
so what do you think the missing piece is? Is it mindset only, or are there other missing pieces that you think come into that?
That is probably the deepest question I've ever been asked.
Here for.
Because it's a combination of 30 years of bad science and indoctrination into what healthy nutrition actually is, the impact in society of what the mental expectation for being healthy is, the image of what we think healthy actually is, and then the struggle of people trying to do things with all of those other three things in play that weren't the right thing, and they're going in the wrong direction because they're following bad information, and then they're blamed when they don't get there because it's because of their willpower, not because of the things that they're doing, even though they're working their butts off to try to get where they want to go. Right? They're doing everything wrong because they think it's all right, but then they're getting, blasted, and their own personal perception of themselves is they're complete failures. because nothing is working. So that's a very deep question. Um, I would say, and this is one of the biggest things that I have learned over the past 6 years, specifically 6 years. And that is the best way right now in the current state of the information that's available in mass media, the information that's been provided for the past 30 plus years about what healthy is, about nutrition, about fitness, about everything. Do it backwards and you'll have more success. Don't follow the food pyramid and you'll have more success. Don't listen to all of the advice about what healthy food is and what healthy food isn't, and you'll have more success. The things that we're being told right now literally are actually making things worse. All of the food advice, particularly nutrition, all the nutrition information that's come out over the past 50 years, if you look at the information, how it's changed the food purchasing habits of Americans over the past 50 years, you see an actual literal line for line correlation with an increase in disease,
Wow.
right? The more seed oils came out in the early 1900s. Did you know that the first recorded heart attack in the US happened in I think it was 1912, 10 years after Crisco came on the market,
Wow.
right? So from the early 1900s to now, there's a direct correlation between the increase, excuse me, in the amount of seed oils and vegetable oils that have been consumed in cardiovascular disease. There's been an increase in the amount of processed food in general and hypertension, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, and everything else. There's been an overall decrease, which a lot of people don't know because the voices are very vocal out there right now in stay away from red meat. We have reduced our consumption of red meat over the past 60 years. Nobody's getting healthier,
Mm.
right? So everything right now that is being blasted in everybody's faces about what good nutrition is the opposite. So I think that's probably one of the places for people to start looking at first.
So that's generally great advice. Yeah, just do the opposite of what you're hearing. Counterintuitive
Yeah.
for sure. But so just out of curiosity, like what was your process to find out that this information is wrong? That's kind of what I was getting at earlier too, right? There's so
Oh
much
yeah.
there, and you
Yeah.
don't know who to trust.
Yep.
I would say that anyone that stands a lot to gain from this information, for instance, we're talking about food sales, and they can definitely
Mhm.
manipulate that depending on what information they put out, clearly. So how do you know? How do you know what to believe?
So I'll just tell you my experience. So about a little over 5 years ago, when I was 45, okay, well, 40, I just turned 40. I was just about to turn 46. I just turned 51 now, so almost 6 years ago. Um, I did an elimination diet. I decided I'm going to see what happens. Okay. And just a little bit of my history. I had been 70 pounds overweight. I had IBS, urgent bowels, depression. Like I was not, I owned a CrossFit gym. I was in great shape. I could lift the weight, do all the workouts and everything else. But I went through a phase where I had lost a lot of weight by getting into shape, but then I started gaining it all back yet because I hadn't really changed how I ate. So I saw some progress, and this is a journey that a lot of people go on. They start fitness, and then that works for a while, and then they start reverting back to where they were because they didn't get the nutrition straight, or they start the nutrition, then they hit a wall and start going backwards because they haven't gotten the fitness. So I learned how to combine both of those things. And how I added the nutrition piece in was I did an elimination diet. Initially, it was just going to be, let's try this for 60 or 90 days and just eat meat. I went carnivore for 60 or 90 days. And within those 90 days, a few things happened. I lost a crap ton of body fat. My IBS completely disappeared. My urgent bowels completely disappeared. I was able to recover from, I don't know, 5 or 6 different chronic injuries that I had. I had pulled groins, pulled calves, pulled hamstrings, torn labrums in my shoulders, torn meniscus in my knee, and all of those pains and aches and everything's just completely went away. So, and that was 5 years. So that was a 60 to 90-day experiment. I said, I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. Completely opposite everything that I had ever been taught. Okay. Now, granted, understanding this, that at the time I was married to a registered dietitian, licensed nutritionist, okay, who she's the one who recommended I try this just as an elimination, temporary elimination thing to see what happened. That was over 5 years ago. I haven't gone back since. It has been the absolute best thing that I ever could have done. My testosterone has increased, my cholesterol has improved, my, all every number that you can possibly think of as far as blood work goes, because I get blood work done regularly. Right. For the first couple of years I did this, I'm still like, what am I doing? I can't believe I'm not eating vegetables. This is still blowing my mind. And now, after all the research that I've done, I've written a couple of books about it. There's just so much, and over the past 5 years, so much more noise has been made about it. There's more studies, there's more information. The science behind it absolutely makes sense. The more I dug into the science behind why is this working for me, the more puzzle pieces of things I had always wondered about with nutrition fell into place, and things that I never thought I would understand all of a sudden made absolute complete sense because of what I was doing and the research I was doing for it. So I'm a great example, and most of the people that I work with are very similar. Where when we do things opposite of everything we've ever been told, everything falls into place.
Interesting. So, just for my nerdy curiosity, what is the science behind why the carnivore diet works?
Well, the first thing, and it's one of the things that is often used as an argument against carnivore, which I think is kind of funny, and that is because any whole foods diet is going to do many aspects of the carnivore diet. So simply just removing processed food, just removing processed carbs, reducing your fiber intake, not eating seed oils, those types of things, increasing your overall protein and natural fats. Just doing that, whether you go carnivore or not, just doing those things is going to completely turn your life around 180 degrees.
Right.
Okay? So some of the things that happen with that, you get more satiety, you get more nutrition per calorie, which is a huge thing that people don't talk about. Everyone talks about calories and they look at calories, you got to get your macros, you got to get your calories, all these things. But we got to understand our bodies don't live on calories, our bodies live on nutrition.
Right.
So we want to increase nutrient density and get more nutrition for every calorie that we eat. And when you go whole foods, you do that. So you're getting more actual things your body can use at the same time as you're reducing your overall calories. So you're not getting as much fuel, but you're getting more nutrition, which is not the same thing. That's a whole nother discussion.
Mhm.
Nutrition and fuel are two different things. So just going whole foods is the step one to carnivore, whole foods, keto, paleo, whole 30. All of those things have a similar effect because you're just getting rid of the crap. And that's step number one, just get rid of the crap. From there, we get into a little bit more of the sciencey stuff where we talk about the difference in calories versus nutrition, where if I am reducing my carb intake, the impact of what the carbs have in my body are different than the impact that fat and protein have in my body. Protein is 90%. I'm not going to use exact numbers because everyone's different, but we'll say mostly used for building, repairing, and growing and providing functional material for our body, not for burning fuel.
Mhm.
Fat is primarily used for helping the nutrition that comes in the protein get absorbed by the body, helping manage hormones, and then fuel. Okay. Carbs are not necessary at all. So anytime we talk about adding carbs to our diet, what we're literally doing is we're telling our body, you have to do extra work now because you don't need this, but I'm giving it to you anyways. So fat as a fuel source is less oxidative, causes less oxidative stress than carbs do. Fat is basically, it was simplified as a cleaner burning fuel than carbs are. We get more energy per gram in fat than we do for carbs. Our body likes it a lot better and it does a lot less damage to us when we use it. So there's some impact there. Just going, becoming what we call fat adapted, where you reduce your carb intake enough so that your body starts primarily using fat for fuel, does a lot of things from what we call fasting mimicking. So it mimics what would happen in our body if we were starving or fasting, where it increases mitochondrial health, it increases brown fat, it increases autophagy, and that does a lot of things to help our body clean itself up and run more efficiently. And that's one of the huge differences between it's not just about the calories. There's things that our body does differently with different things.
Right. Now, just out of curiosity, because I do know that our bodies, when given the option to choose between a carb and a fat, it
Mhm.
will choose the carbs first.
Yep.
So if the carbs are, or if the fats are a better, cleaner option for us, do you happen to know why is it that our body chooses the
Yep.
carb first?
Yeah. There's a thing called oxidative priority. So in that same vein, we talk about carbs will be utilized before fat. Um, Alcohol will be utilized before carbs. If I have alcohol and carbs at the same time, the carbs essentially are going to sit there, get metabolized into fat, and then get added to my hips while my body's processing the alcohol. Because alcohol is higher on the list of things that the body has to utilize because it's more toxic. Okay. So basically, the way the body works is it says, I'm going to process and metabolize and utilize and get rid of the most dangerous things that I possibly can first. Okay. There is no storage for alcohol and it is toxic. Your body will shut everything else down and process alcohol before it processes anything else. I have to get this out of my system.
Mm.
Okay. Then we have ketones, which are not toxic, but there's no storage for ketones. Your body has to use them or get rid of them. So ketones are next. And then from there, we have carbs, and the body's like, hey, I have some storage, right? We can store somewhere around 700 calories worth of glycogen in our body and our muscles and our liver. Okay, but that's about it. So I've only got so much storage. I have to either convert it to fat because I have almost unlimited storage for fat, and I have to burn it as much as possible because I've got nothing else to do with it, right? And then there's fat, which the body prefers because that's why it's also prioritized for storage. The body prefers fat. That's why it stores energy as fat. If
Mm.
the body preferred carbs, it would store more energy as carbs, but it doesn't,
Interesting.
right? So that's kind of how that works.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So just to get away from the sciencey stuff and just which I completely appreciate and I love listening to that. But I did have another question on mindset that I didn't want to forget to ask before
Yeah.
we wrap up. So uh, I just want to know what do you think that the greatest negative impactors are to our mindset in daily life? Because it seems to be a struggle to keep a good, productive, positive mindset. What do you think impacts that the most? Why is that so challenging for us?
There's not one answer, I think, for any one person. I think the common things that I see are lack of belief that it's possible, um, fear of failure, and let's see if there's, I want to give you three. I think the third one would be overthinking, overanalyzing, analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. I think those are probably the three things. A lot of people just don't have the belief. They just don't. They've never seen it in their life, so it's hard for them to even comprehend what it could look like. When we were working with someone and saying, hey, what's your vision board look like? Let's talk about, building a vision for this life that you want to have. It is literally impossible for them to even picture what their life could be like if X, Y, or Z were to happen. And that's a work in progress of trying to help them put little pieces together and build that vision for themselves. And then the fear of failure thing is a really hard one to help people get through because for whatever reason, whether it's they've tried so many things and they failed that they feel like they have identified as a failure, they now have that label on their life, on themselves. And we have to separate the failures from their identity and look and try to get them to reframe that. Um, that's a hard one. I like to talk about curiosity being a cure for fear of failure. Once you start becoming curious, once you start looking at this from a quality of life perspective and a physical function or a metabolic function or what can my body do kind of point of view, and you start getting curious, then you start getting into the I'm willing to try, which starts getting you away from feeling, that fear of failure. Um, and then the third one, what was the third one? Oh, paralysis by analysis. That's another hard one. People, I think that might be a symptom of fear of failure, but I think that a lot of people look at all this information out there, and instead of just trying something, they want to find the right thing, and they spend months and months and months looking at this and looking at that and looking at this, and it's like, just try something.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. And this is one of the cool things that I like to tell, particularly beginners, that you have a better chance of being successful doing anything at the stage that you are than I do where I'm at, having been doing it for 12 years. Right. For me to move forward an inch is going to take a lot more work than it is for you to move a mile when you're just getting started. Any movement, anything you do, even if it's probably not the best thing for you to be doing for whatever reason, it's probably going to move you forward in some degree, and that is what you need. And then if you're going to hit a point where it stops working, and then you got to figure out, okay, that's not working anymore. What's the next thing I can try? But if you're not trying new things, then you're always going to be stuck where you are.
Right. And trying anything is also better than trying nothing.
Yeah, a bat never swung as a ball never hit.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're on, like you kind of said, even if you're on the wrong path or it's not the right solution, at least there's still value in doing the wrong thing because you learn that it's the wrong thing. That's a piece of information
Exactly.
that you can work with and then adjust from there, right? Which,
Yep. Everything is just a data point.
yeah, exactly. And I like what you said about curiosity as well. This is something I've adopted over the last few years. As much as I can. And the reason I like the concept of curiosity, especially when it comes to thinking about ourselves,
Mhm.
is it kind of helps us understand that there's sort of a player and a coach at the same time, like all in one in us, right? It allows us to observe our own behaviors, observe our patterns in a way that just makes it easier, I think, for me to then get myself motivated or act on the things that I know that I want. For instance, if my alarm went off in the morning and I don't feel like getting up out of bed, it's so hard to coach yourself to do something that in the moment you don't feel like doing. But as soon as I adopted this sort of curiosity of trying to neutrally even observe myself and understand that I'm almost like coach me is like, hey, you should get up and here are all the reasons why. You know that you're motivated for X, Y, and Z goal. Then the player version of me can also then hear the coach at the same time and say, okay, yeah, I don't know if sounds crazy or if this makes sense to you, but for me, it's been helpful to actually get myself motivated because really, if you're not feeling motivated or you're in this cycle of talking yourself out of doing the right thing, with like, i.e., get up and go to the gym, for instance, uh, it it's really hard to be the person to convince yourself otherwise when you in that moment you are in the state of not wanting to go. Like I don't think
Yeah,
people recognize how
sure.
incredibly hard that is. So for
Yeah.
me this is something that's helped me, but I don't know if that makes any sense to you at all.
Yeah, no, that makes a little sense. The most people, and even myself, like I've gotten really good at it over the years, but there are still times where my self-awareness doesn't hit in until after the fact.
Right.
And having to do that, in the military, in the army, we call it after action review. XYZ happened, this event happened. Let's review it in our mind. Let's go through this and try to understand what was my motivation, what was I thinking, what justification did I make, what thing did I say to myself, all of these different things, and figure out why did I make the decision that I made, knowing that that decision wasn't going to move me where I wanted to go. Um, the the cool thing about that is the more you practice that habit, even if it's after the event, the more you're going to get better at having that same process during the event.
Yeah, it shortens the time, right?
It shortens the time, it brings it in. So you have your trigger. Right now, most people are probably, I have a trigger, something happens, I react to it, and then whether it's 5 minutes or 5 days afterwards, I sit back and go, crap, why did I do that? And then you have to have this practice of self awareness and reflection. The more you do that, what happens is that self-reflection, that self-awareness kicks in. You have the trigger, then you have your self-awareness discussion internally, then you have the opportunity to make a different reaction, to make a different choice instead of doing it after the fact. So it's about habit, it's about practice, it's a skill. It's not something. Don't anybody listening, don't get on yourself if you're not there yet. Many of us aren't, and none of us are there 100% of the time.
Right.
It is a skill that must be practiced over and over and over again.
Absolutely. And I think even as we develop the skill, we get better at maybe managing our reaction to a situation in shorter time. So whether it's is ideally maybe live, in the moment, we can actually change it ahead of time. But we're also practicing that for a specific type of trigger that we've learned to observe and think about and be aware of. And
Yes.
even if you have practiced that skill, I would also say that if some totally new thing happens that you've never experienced before and you happen to have a reaction that you don't understand, you may for that situation also go back to, okay, well, now it's 5 days later and we're going to think about it and process it, and so
Do it.
it's
Yeah.
kind of always evolving, and it depends. It's situational, right? So we have to be kind to ourselves a little bit, say, it's not something that we just wake up with and we're good to go.
Very much so. And to even support the building of that habit of self-awareness more, we can look at the front end of the situation as well. And if there's situations in advance are going to put you in a compromising position, you have to control your environment. You have to make the choices before you get put in the situation as a contingency so that you're prepared when something happens. So I'm going to my friend's house for a party. I know they're not going to have what I want to eat. So I'm bringing, or I'm going to eat beforehand, or whatever, so that I'm not going to be tempted with X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Or, and here's a hard one for people. This is a really hard one for people. I'm not going to the party
Mm,
because I know they're going to have things there that I don't want to eat.
right. This
There
full.
is some self-awareness in removing yourself from a situation, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I could never do that. What about blah? You don't, if someone is an alcoholic and they're trying to get healthy and get away from their alcohol addiction, you don't, do you give them a hard time if they say they're not going to the bar anymore?
Right.
Why would it be any different if someone is trying to stay away from sweets and pastries and whatever else, and they say, I'm not going to your Christmas party because that's all that's going to be there?
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, and
If
I
they're
think.
doing what's best for their health and you're doing what's best for your health, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about if you are the person who is part of, let's say you're the one hosting the party and someone says, no, I'm not going to come because XYZ. There's
Yeah.
something to be said that maybe as the host of the party, I could also be self-aware and do better at not getting offended, for instance, not making the person feel bad. There are things that can be done on the other side as well to help support that person if it's someone that you care about and you know that that's what their goals are, right? It's not gonna. I mean, yeah, you can express that, hey, it's a shame, I was looking forward to seeing you, but I completely understand, right? So there's ways to make that conversation too.
Yeah, you would hope that there's a whole nother discussion on how for those of you on a journey of self-discovery and improvement from a health and nutrition perspective, fitness, quality of life. We could probably have a whole episode just talking about how to manage your relationships, your environment to support your journey, right? Because it's painful and it's the thing a lot of people don't talk about, but when you're ready to make these changes, you can't bring everybody with you. And there are people and circumstances and situations that you will no longer be a part of, and they will no longer be a part of your life. And
Yeah,
that's just the reality of it. And that's something that some of us, some, most of us, a lot of us have a hard time letting go of some of those things. And that can be a blocker to your progress as well.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, if you're willing, I'd love to have that conversation because I think that it's a huge piece
Yeah.
that people need support with. But just in the interest of time, I did want to ask you one last fun question. I know I started heavy. Hopefully, this one will be easier to answer. Um, so I like to ask, what's one lesson that in life that you wish that you'd learned sooner, maybe other than the carnivore diet being a great thing?
One lesson in life. Not a you're you with all these questions. Let's see.
Not a light
Um,
noted.
yeah, no, I think the biggest lesson, realization that I think has changed my life the most has been that everybody's story matters.
Hmm.
And I think that that has changed my life because at some point along the process, I haven't done the work to really figure out where this started and how it whatever, but I got the passion to become a health coach, become a fitness coach, and that has morphed into where I'm at today, where I can't not coach. I can't not talk to people. I can't not share my story and share what's happened in my life and my clients' lives and the people that I care about. Um, and I'm passionate about getting other people to do the same thing because I can't reach everybody.
Right.
But there are so many people that are close. And this is the thing, this is why everybody's story matters. There are a lot of people in my circle that my immediate family, my immediate friends, none of them will listen to me. Not a single one of them will listen to anything I have to say. I cannot talk to the people that are closest to me about things that they can do to improve their life and their health and the quality of life.
Hmm.
Only way they're going to see something next with them is by someone else sharing their story that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
So the more people that share their story, their struggles, and their successes, not just the successes, what they're doing, how hard it is that they're pushing through. That's the stuff that gets people that I can't get.
Right.
And that is really important to me. I think realizing that number one, my story makes a difference. The fact that I have people that follow me on Instagram, listen to the stuff I'm doing, and listen to the things that I've said every single day, it absolutely blows my mind. Like, who the hell? Why is anyone listening to me? You know, and people have bought my book and all these different things. It's like it's still weird to wrap my head around. But at the same time, I love that it's completely selfish. There's a level of coaching, and you may understand this. There is a level and an aspect to coaching that is 100% selfish because I get to see the joy I get to experience the joy of impacting other people's lives for the better.
Mhm.
So I get that, I feel great about what I've done in my life, but I get that every single day when I get a message or I get a call or I see someone post something that they did or whatever's happening, like every single day I get reinvigorated with this feeling of accomplishment because I'm helping people improve. So yeah, I think everybody's story is super important and more people need to share it. That's the biggest thing. I think more people need to share their stories.
Yeah, I would agree because, you could hear the same, well, I don't want to say the same story because there are no life stories that are the same, but you could hear a similar story from five different people and four of them won't really land that well with you, but that last one, and it's almost hard to quantify why it is
Yep.
it's just their energy, or maybe there's something else that you connect with them on, and so you kind of listen to the story a little bit closer or something. There's something about it, and there's no real way to tell which one's going to land best with who. And so that's why
Yes.
too I think it's important for everybody to share their stories, including us who feel like, who are we to be talking and
Yeah.
who's going to listen to us? Well, yeah, somebody will.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've been to conferences and listened to other people speak and just thought to myself, I don't understand how anybody's going to get anything out of this talk. I'm listening to the talk and I'm like, it's too scientific or it's too up here in the stratosphere of concept and principles, or it's too down here, it's too detailed. It's all these different things. And then I'll walk around afterwards and everyone was like, oh my God, that was amazing, this and that and this. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
there's literally something out there. There's somebody talking that is going to hit somebody. And it's not ever going to be the same person.
Right. Right.
So I think it's awesome. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely great.
No, that's absolutely true. So, just to wrap up, where can people go to learn more about you and your work and your programs and boot camps and things that you have going on?
Yeah, all the different things. So primarily, as far as content goes, you're going to find me on Instagram and YouTube at coach.bronson. Both the same on both of those. My website is coachbronson.com. I have a book on Amazon called The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. And if you go to my website, I have a blog up, and I have in my information on there. I also did a study that may interest your listeners. Did a study last year with a bunch of women over 45 who were peri postmenopausal, using the ketogenic diet, functional fitness training for 8 weeks to improve the symptoms of menopause. So they not only increased their lean mass, built muscle, improved their physical ability, lost body fat, but a lot of the things, hot flashes, sleeping, energy, is all the different normal things you hear about menopause. A lot of those symptoms are decreased, and their overall quality of life was so much better after only 8 weeks. And that's the kind of thing. 95% of my clientele are women over 40. So I have a long history, and that's because my passion starts from my grandmother. I've been working with my mom for almost 10 years. She's 69 now. So I have a lot of experience in that realm. And that's really where my passion is.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'll make sure to include as many of those links and resources as I can in the description here. But um, that's awesome, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know how important it is, and I know what you're up against. You know, when it comes to all the bad information and everything that's out there. So I do appreciate what you're doing to try to make a difference for people out there. So with that, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for this conversation. This was great, even just for me, even if no one else listened to it. I got a lot out of it. And I do like to thank our listeners, as always, for their time and attention too. Please make sure to check us out online and subscribe to Mindset Over Matter as well, so you don't miss out on more awesome episodes and content like this one today. So Coach Bronson, thank you very much, and take care.
Thank you very much for having me, Gabby. Appreciate it.
No problem.